If you have issues with sunspots, age spots, or melasma, this video is for you. I'm a real board certified plastic surgeon, and we're going to target how to get rid of hyperpigmentation. When we talk about hyperpigmentation, there are usually two different types that are an issue for people, and it's very important to determine which type you have because they are treated differently. The first type of hyperpigmentation are age spots, sunspots, or liver spots. These are three different names for the same thing, and this is clumps of melanin that occur in the skin after excess UV radiation. These spots typically are well defined. They show up oftentimes after you have undergone a lot of sun exposure. Now, the clumps of pigment that compose these types of spots are usually sitting fairly superficial in your skin. But the only way to get rid of them is to actively remove them. You cannot wait out sunspots. They won't necessarily go away on their own, but there are very simple ways that you can make them go away. Now, the second type of hyperpigmentation is melasma. And melasma, unlike sunspots, is more patchy and kind of ill-defined, and oftentimes it's fairly symmetric. Like you can see it on both cheeks or over the forehead. Melasma is often associated with hormonal changes, like pregnancy or even birth control pills. And unlike sunspots, where the pigment is fairly superficial or close to the surface, the pigment in melasma is much deeper, and because of that, it can be much more difficult to get rid of. So the first thing you need to consider if you've got issues with melasma is to get a consultation with a board-certified dermatologist, because oftentimes you can get better results when you work hand in hand with a dermatologist than if you try to treat melasma on your own. So now let's go into the 5 ways that you can actually treat hyperpigmentation. There are 2 main types of creams that can treat hyperpigmentation, whether it's melasma or age spots. There are hydroquinones, and there are all of the others. Now, hydroquinone is a skin lightening ingredient that has been around for decades, and it is very, very powerful. It comes in non-prescription strength, which is 2%, and prescription strength, which is 4%. And if you were to pick one type of cream that can really reduce excess unwanted pigmentation, hydroquinone is the most powerful of them. But it's also the most controversial. Hydroquinone has been shown in large amounts to potentially cause cancer in laboratory rats. And because of the concerns with the safety of hydroquinone, it's actually not available in the EU, and the non-prescription strength is not available in the United States. It was actually taken off the market as part of a COVID relief bill that was passed a few years ago. So here in the United States, we do have access to 4% hydroquinone, which is a prescription strength that you must get through a doctor. So with all I've said about hydroquinone, why would somebody use it? Well, the fact is that it works. If you've got issues with severe melasma, if you've got a ton of age spots, and you want to see changes as quickly as possible, then hydroquinone 4% just may be the avenue to get there. So what about the other skin lightening agents? Well, there are a number of different other ingredients that you can see in brightening creams that can be very effective, albeit not quite as effective as 4% hydroquinone. And this includes kojic acid, niacinamide, and licorice root extract. Now these work, but they're a bit slower acting potentially than prescription strength hydroquinone, and it can take several months for them to truly work and for you to see the results of it. But the benefit of these types of ingredients is that they are completely safe. You can use them for long periods of time without worrying about the health of your skin. And this is in contrast to hydroquinone, where honestly your body can develop a tolerance to it, and if you've been on it for a really long time and then you go off of it, you can get a rebound hyperpigmentation with hydroquinone. So in general, I recommend if you want to go natural, if you want to go absolutely as safe as possible, stay with the other group, not the hydroquinone. But if you're under the care of a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon, and that pigment is a major issue for you, then hydroquinone prescription strength may be a reasonable option for about a 6-month period to use. Bonus, if you combine one of these brightening creams with an exfoliating cream, like let's say a retinol moisturizer, you can get quicker and more effective results. Vitamin C is best known as being an antioxidant, so it helps fight free radicals that can damage your skin. But what a lot of people don't realize is that it can also help to lighten unwanted hyperpigmentation. Now, I recommend 2 forms of vitamin C, and they should come in about a 10 to 20% concentration for optimal effects. The first form is L-ascorbic acid. This is found in most of the vitamin C serums that you find, let's say, at your drugstore. And the benefit with L-ascorbic acid is that it's quite powerful. But the negative is it's not all that stable and it has a higher chance of skin irritation than its counterpart. Now, the other type of vitamin C is sodium ascorbyl phosphate. This is slightly less effective than L-ascorbic acid, but it's definitely more stable and it's less irritating to the skin. Now, in our best-selling Youn Beauty CE Antioxidant Serum, we use sodium ascorbyl phosphate because it's so gentle on the skin, it's definitely effective, and it's super stable. So it's very unlikely that when you get it, it's going to be oxidized. So in general, if you're dealing with either melasma or sunspots, I do recommend using a vitamin C serum every morning. Tranexamic acid is a fairly new entry into treatments for melasma. Now, it can be taken either orally or applied as a topical agent. Now, one study found that taking oral TXA in Asians who were having issues with melasma was safe and effective after using it for 12 weeks. And another study with oral TXA found a good or excellent response in 65% of the participants who took it. And if you're dealing with melasma and you don't want to use topical hydroquinone, then some doctors are recommending topical TXA as an alternative. But the important thing is if you're considering tranexamic acid, TXA, for your melasma, talk with a dermatologist because it must be given by a prescription. Now, I know what you're going to say, yeah, doctors always tell us to wear sunscreen, but this is super important, especially if you're dealing with melasma or with sunspots. The UV radiation that you get from the sun will contribute to both of these conditions in a major way. If you've got issues with melasma, then I recommend actually using a sunscreen or a sunblock with an SPF of 50, not the 30 that we recommend in general, because in people who have melasma, oftentimes their skin is hypersensitive to the sun. If you're just dealing with normal sunspots from getting too much sun, then usually an SPF 30 is sufficient. And remember, if you've seen my other videos, I encourage you to try to avoid oxybenzone and octinoxate due to their possible hormone disrupting effects. And if you do want to get some therapeutic sun, because I know that getting the sun on your body can be therapeutic in many ways, then try to get a good 15 minutes either in the morning or in the evening. Studies show that 15 minutes of sunlight is usually enough for most people to get their body to create enough vitamin D to avoid deficiency, but also to help support your circadian rhythms. And if you can, try to avoid getting the sun in those peak hours of about noon to 3 p.m. or so. If you've got issues with sunspots and you want an inside-outside 1-2 punch to get rid of them and to hopefully prevent them from coming back, then I recommend that you combine IPL, or intense pulse light treatments. They're kind of like laser treatments with those creams that I mentioned before. However, it's important not to use IPL treatments if you have melasma. So this is very important. IPL can really improve sunspots or age spots, but it can actually make melasma worse depending on your skin type. So if you just don't know what type of hyperpigmentation you're dealing with, the first thing you want to do is go see a board-certified dermatologist to get started. Well, hyperpigmentation can be a major issue in women who've gone through menopause or are in perimenopause. And if you're going through those types of changes, you must treat your skin differently and have a different skincare routine than you did prior to menopause. And I go over my new menopause skincare routine in this video right up here. And remember, eat real food, use clean skincare, and auto-rejuvenate before you operate.